Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for checking in with us. We got another one of our Hail Caesar faction review videos. We're checking in with Qin China today, and again, sort of the Asian theater is not one that always gets enough love in some of the older historical games and stuff like that, or older periods. So it's great refreshing to see a list for this, and certainly it would be nice if more people would make models and stuff for it. But definitely a worthy era and location for a lot of this type of gaming that Hail Caesar offers. And it would be cool to maybe at some point see like an actual campaign expansion from Warlord, either for just all of Asia or at least China and other areas as well. But certainly there's a lot of fertile ground there that hasn't really been touched by a lot of companies. So that being said, Qin China is roughly supposed to represent late 4th through 3rd century BC. Interesting army composition here. So it's going to be a mainly infantry force, but it's still very diverse. You could also have cavalry up to a quarter. Basically up to 10% can be chariots. And then basically the fairly typical skirmisher and division restrictions there. And it's a fairly detailed list too, as far as or diverse list, I should say, offering up a lot of different things, and basically can really hang with a lot of other lists. And again, it's interesting to maybe play some what if scenarios. Could what would happen if ancient Roman like China would have ever collided, stuff like that. So anyway, let's start off here. So heavy infantry armed with G spears and swords. So pretty typical heavy infantry stat line. Again, really solid short range. These guys are all drilled for 29 points a pop. That's quite excellent. Extra to upgrade them to veteran, so up to half of them basically. So you get elite as well. So again, lots of special rules on tap here on the infantry side. And then you could also incorporate archers into the rear ranks of the heavy infantry and or veterans. So basically just adds more points, but it gives you a long range option, which is really cool. So it's a unique or somewhat unique hybrid unit with heavy infantry doing all the tough fighting, but still can reach out and basically whittle down some enemies before contact is made as well. So well worth considering, and still relatively cheap, all things considered, for all that ability. Then we move on to medium infantry, and then again, same basically equipment setup, just a little bit less on the combat side, but also a little bit cheaper on the point side there. And again, we could incorporate archers again, which is just a really neat idea that you don't have to have separate necessarily like archer units to get that long range ability. And then we could also reduce the points here to field either of the above as undrilled, basically what they call impressed troops. Basically just read there like captured enemies that are pressed into service. You could also make them essentially convicts, so like prisoners basically being forced to serve as soldiers. They would count as levies. And then we could also, interestingly here, upgrade them to fanatics, which we haven't seen much of, but basically goes, we lose drilled, and we get wild fighters, fanatic, and frenzied charge for 4 points, and then the range stat changes a little bit there. So that's an interesting one to throw at people too, because you might think this is more like blocks of infantry, kind of ordered infantry, but here we almost get like a Gaul, Germania type of crazy fighter. Sort of, again, not pun intended here, wild fighting unit. So really good stuff there. It would kind of make sense as well to even mix in some of these like either just extremely loyal crazy troops, or could almost say like there's a reason for like some of the convicts or other captured peoples to maybe potentially act like that too. We move on to light infantry. We get basically spears and or javelins, and again, just a sort of as we downgrade from heavy to light, basically they just they do what just a generic light infantry unit would do there. That being said, we could, for 1 point more, go with basically light infantry with bows or crossbows. A little bit weaker in close combat, but very solid on ranged. And we could go with basically, if it were archers, as a small unit as well. So just getting access to multiple missile troops there. Then we do get some skirmishers, basically with the typical small unit javelin type of troop, and same thing with more small unit with bows or crossbows, which is weird too. Well, I guess it's not weird. The other one's a light infantry being downgraded into small units, and this one's just straight up skirmishers because they have the weaker fighting ability. Then we get into the cavalry. So we got medium cavalry against spears, javelins, typical stats there, nothing special yet. But it's where they have some like light cavalry and archers, where the Chinese list will also shine here. But nonetheless, the medium cavalry can definitely do some work. Woohoo, yeah. Light cavalry armed with javelins and bows as small units, so lots of access to that. And again, feigned flight on tap, basically, as far as like having multiple units, is pretty dang cool. And then same thing with basically that unit as horse archers, a little bit weaker in combat, but they get Parthian shot there. So some interesting differences there. But some combination of that will be pretty nasty to deal with as well. And then we move on. There's a little bit on the subsequent page here. So we get Qin horse archers with bows or crossbows as small units as well. So just another different unit. If you don't want to pay for the extra special abilities, again, they can still be very solid. And then we did mention chariots. So as another heavy hitter here, 4-horse light chariot with crews with crossbows and spears. So you get a mobile tank, basically. Again, that's going to hit really hard. Clash of 9. Fantastic range ability and a solid heavy infantry save there. And then a really interesting list, because we don't see this all that often, but we have the typical leadership 8 across the board, but we can also pay extra to upgrade a general to leadership 9. It's very rare that we've seen that. We saw it with the Macedonians with Alexander for obvious reasons there, but I think only 1 or 2 previous lists have had access to this type of leadership 9 like that. But just absolutely fantastic. This is a list that can, again, do everything. It has access to pretty much all, not necessarily phases of the game, but sort of all aspects. You got very solid infantry of various quality levels with special rules. You got decent medium cavalry that can just do work, but then the light cavalry really shines here. Again, lots of ranged potential for this list, especially with that rear rank upgrade if you go with that, which, why wouldn't you? And then still hit you with chariots, and then all that can be being led by leadership 9 too, so you're going to be able to be a little bit more aggressive with your orders and push more orders through more often. So a very scary list, guys. So again, I'm not sure what's out there model wise. I don't think Warlord makes anything as far as I know, but I'm sure some manufacturer somewhere makes things. But again, this would be a great one at some point to see an expansion for the Far East, basically, for Hail Caesar. So let us know in the comments what you guys think. Have you collected this? Have you gamed with it? What have you fought against? Really interesting to know. Drop us a like, a comment if you could. Subscribe if you haven't already, guys. And thanks so much for checking in. We'll see you in the next one.